Welcome, everyone. In today's video, we're diving into the much-anticipated kit of the Pyro Archon, Mavuika, whose abilities are currently in beta testing. Yes, you heard that right. Mavuika's kit has been revealed, and it's making waves in the community. If you've been wondering how her kit works, how it stands out, and whether she's worth saving for, stick around because by the end of this video, you'll have all the answers you need. I'll be breaking down her abilities, explaining her strengths, and helping you decide whether Mavuika deserves your primo gems or if you should save for another upcoming character in patch 5.2. Keep in mind, though, that everything we discuss here is subject to change since we're still in the beta phase. Adjustments could be made to her kit before her official release. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the fiery details of the Pyro Archon, Mavuika, and what she brings to the table. Let's get started. Think of this as your ultimate shopping list, but instead of hitting them all, you're taking on pyro bosses and hunting for shiny drops. Let's dive in. First up, Mavuika's favorite gemstones, Agnatus agate. You'll need 1 sliver, 9 fragments, 9 chunks, and 9 gemstones. Where do you find these fiery beauties? Pyro bosses like the Pyro Regis Vine and Pyro Hypostasis are your best bet. If you're feeling fancy, weekly bosses that drop pyro materials can help too. Just remember, pyro bosses don't accept returns, so make sure to pack a strong hydro character. Next, you'll need 168 withering purple blooms, Mavuika's local specialty from the 𝐜𝐴𝐶 region of Natlan. These gorgeous plants are scattered across the landscape. Think of it as a scavenger hunt, but instead of a prize, you get Mavuika's approval. Now for the fun part. Hunting down whistles. You'll need 36 Sentries wooden whistles, 96 Warriors metal whistles, and 129 Crown Warriors golden whistles. These are dropped by Soriform tribal warriors in Natlan. Grab your Adventurer's Handbook. It's basically a GPS for finding these enemies. Just don't blame me if they start to feel like your in-game nemesis after farming them for hours. For boss drops, Mavuika's demands include 46 gold-inscribed secret source cores. You'll need to face the secret source automaton, a boss tucked underground in the 𝐼𝐴𝐶 Springs region of Natlan. Pro tip: bring your best team and maybe a stress ball because farming this guy can be intense. When it comes to talents, Mavuika loves books. Specifically, the teachings, guides, and philosophies of contention. You'll need 9 teachings, 63 guides, and 114 philosophies, all farmed from the Blazing Ruins domain on Mondays, Thursdays, and Sundays. If you're like me and tend to forget domain schedules, just set a reminder. Your future self will thank you. Oh, and let's not forget the Crowns of Insight. Mavuika needs 3 to fully level her talents. These are super rare, so treat them like treasure and use them wisely. One little hiccup: Mavuika's weekly boss material is dropped by a new boss coming in version 5.3. Translation: no pre-farming for this one. Guess you'll have to channel your patience and focus on everything else for now. Finally, brace yourself for the total cost. About 2 million Mora and roughly 421 EXP books to bring Mavuika to level 90. It's a hefty investment, but hey, ruling Natlan isn't cheap. With this guide, you're all set to prep for Mavuika's arrival. Start gathering now, and by the time she hits the game, you'll be ready to unleash her fiery potential. Just remember, farming can be tough, but at least you're saving yourself from spending primo gems on resins, right? Let's talk artifacts for Mavuika, because what's a Pyro Archon without the perfect drip? And guess what? There's no new map in 5.3, so you can dive into farming her artifacts right now. That's right, no excuses, unless your resin is crying for a break. If you're building Mavuika as a team support, the Cinder City set is your MVP. This set cranks up her utility, making her the ultimate team player. She'll be like the friend who always brings snacks to the party. Except in this case, the snacks are pyro-infused buffs. Now, if you want Mavuika to be your on-field DPS, swap the snacks for fireworks and go with the Obsidian Codex set. This one turns her into a damage-dealing machine, ready to melt enemies with her fiery moves. But what if someone else on your team is already rocking Cinder City? No problem. If you're planning to run Mavuika as an off-field sub-DPS, the Golden Troop set has got you covered. It's a great backup plan that focuses on maximizing her off-field damage. Think of it as the I'm not always here, but when I am, I hit hard setup. So, whether you're farming for teamwork, firepower, or sneaky sub-DPS tricks, these artifact sets have you sorted. Just don't forget to check those substats. Mavuika deserves only the best. When choosing main stats for Mavuika's artifacts, go with ATK% on the sands, ATK% on the goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the circlet. Her kit and the Cinder City 4-piece effect already provide plenty of damage bonuses, so stacking ATK% is like giving her extra firepower, literally. For substats, focus on ATK, crit rate, crit damage, and elemental mastery. As for energy recharge, it's not very useful for her. Don't bother chasing it. It's about as exciting for Mavuika as getting a defense % roll on a DPS piece. Let's talk a bit about Mavuika's kit. At level 90, her base stats are HP at 12,552, base attack at 352, base defense at 792, and crit DMG at 68.4%. Mavuika is a Claymore user who deals pyro damage with both her elemental skill and elemental burst, making her a powerhouse in combat. Mavuika performs 4 consecutive normal attacks that deal physical damage, and her charged attack costs around 50 energy. However, there's no real need to focus on upgrading her normal attacks because her elemental skill and elemental burst are where the real damage comes from. Her elemental skill can be used in 2 ways. The first is in a support role, where using her elemental skill gives her 80 Night Soul points, which she consumes gradually. This activates the Night Soul Blessing state, and she summons a ring, similar to Raiden Shogun's, called the Ring of Searing Radiance. This ring deals pyro damage every 2 seconds, even if you're not hitting enemies directly. One important detail: the ring doesn't have an internal cooldown, ICD, meaning it can trigger reaction damage with every hit, increasing her overall damage potential. The second way to use her elemental skill is the hold version, called Flame Strider. In this mode, Mavuika hops onto her bike. Yep, she's got a pyro-powered ride, gaining interruption resistance while she charges into battle. This mode also transforms her normal, charged, and plunge attacks into pyro damage, and here's the kicker: it won't get overridden by other buffs. So if you've been waiting for that sweet pyro-infused charged attack, this is your moment. It's pretty clear now, when you tap her elemental skill, you're playing the support role, dealing damage over time and triggering reactions. But when you hold it, you're turning Mavuika into a full-on on-field DPS, ready to scorch the battlefield. One more thing about her Night Soul points: she can store up to 80 points with a 15-second cooldown. This means her kit is super flexible, letting you easily switch between support and DPS depending on the situation. So, whether you're melting enemies with her fiery rings or charging into battle with full pyro damage, Mavuika can do it all, just like that one friend who's always ready to switch roles in a game, no questions asked. Now, let's talk about Mavuika's burst, which is pretty unique. It doesn't need energy to activate, This one works on a brand new mechanic called Fighting Spirit. Yep, you heard that right. Mauvika doesn't rely on energy. She feeds off her fighting spirit, which means she's ready to go full throttle, no matter the situation. Once her burst is activated, she gets a buff that boosts her personal damage. It's like turning on her serious mode, where she channels all that fiery energy into even more destruction. But here's the twist. There are two ways to increase fighting spirit. First, if anyone in your party consumes Night Soul points, it gets converted into fighting spirit, so you're actually helping Mauvika power up, kind of like giving her a motivational speech mid-battle. The second way is through basic normal attacks. If someone in your party lands a normal attack on an enemy, Mauvika gains 1.5 fighting spirit every second. It's like she's feeding off the energy of the team, and the more they attack, the stronger she gets. So, essentially, Mauvika's burst is the ultimate team effort skill. Whether it's your team members using Night Soul points or just punching enemies in the face, Mauvika's there, ready to turn that energy into an even bigger explosion of damage. She's like the teammate who takes all the high fives and turns them into firepower. When Mauvika has at least 50% fighting spirit, she can unleash her ultimate. After using it, she gains 10 Night Soul points and enters Flame mode, where she deals high AoE damage. Her ultimate has an 18-second cooldown with a 7-second duration. During these 7 seconds, her normal and charged attacks will receive significant buffs, making her an even bigger threat on the battlefield. However, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. While she's in this Flame mode, she won't be able to gain any more Night Soul points, so her fuel is locked for the duration. Additionally, her interruption resistance increases, meaning she's less likely to be knocked out of her attacks by enemies. But here's the catch. If you switch out to another character during this effect, it'll immediately end. So, unless you want her to miss out on the full effect, keep her in the spotlight. Now, let's dive into Mauvika's passive abilities. The first one is pretty straightforward. When a party member triggers a Night Soul burst, Mauvika gains a 35% ATK increase for 10 seconds. It's like getting a power-up after seeing your teammate perform a great move. Mauvika feels pumped and ready to deal more damage. Her second passive comes into play after using her burst. Once activated, the active character, the one you're controlling, will receive an ATK increase of up to 50% for 20 seconds. This boost doesn't last forever, though. It decays over time until it eventually reaches 0. Think of it like a burst of adrenaline that fades away as the battle goes on, but it's more than enough to help land some serious hits in the first few moments. So, Mauvika's passives are all about giving the team a little extra damage when it matters most, whether it's from her Night Soul bursts or after she uses her ultimate. You can count on her to deliver that extra push when you need it. Pretty easy to understand, right? Now, let's go over her constellations. C1. Her Night Soul points increase to 120, and her fighting spirit will generate 25% faster. Plus, she'll gain 40% ADK for 8 seconds after gaining fighting spirit, so a nice boost when she powers up. C2. This is Mauvika's best constellation. Her base attack increases by 300, and she will decrease enemies' resistance by 20% while gaining an ATK boost for her normal and charged attacks. This one is a game changer for both support and damage. C3. This increases her ultimate level, making her even stronger. C4. With this, the decay buff from her second passive no longer decays. It'll stay active for a longer period, giving her more consistent damage. C5. Her elemental skill level increases, letting her dish out even more damage. C6. At C6, if you're using her elemental skill to support the team, the damage increases by 200%. If you hold the elemental skill, her ATK increases by 400%, and the AoE damage increases every 3 seconds. Also, when you're playing her in support mode and she loses Night Soul points, once it drops to 5, she'll gain an additional 80 points, triggered every 15 seconds. This means her supportive and personal damage both get significant buffs at C6. Huff, that was a lot to take in, right? But with that, we've covered all of Mauvika's artifacts, skills, and Ascension materials. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future updates. And yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.